You know what is so crazy? You can be disciplined, focused, and building your dream life and still feel behind. I mean, really think about it for a second. Let's look at this year so far. You set clear goals, you're taking action towards them, you are building with intention, yet you may still have moments where you feel behind, discouraged, or like you're not doing enough, even though you're starting this year stronger than you did last year. And people rarely talk about how easy it is to sabotage your growth while you're trying to level up. You start comparing your progress to other women, seeking validation without realizing it, overthinking your ideas, replaying old mistakes, and hesitating because you are afraid to fail. Then, instead of enjoying the process of becoming, you find yourself just carrying the pressure of not being her yet. So in today's video, we're going to chat about all the things that we need to let go of if we actually want to enjoy the process of becoming the best version of ourselves. So real quick, hey, hello, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Cherrelle, and on this channel, we're all about identity-based personal development and a sprinkle of personal brand building. So take a second to subscribe and let's get into the video. All right, so we're going to start with the one that quietly steals the most joy. So a lot of you watch videos about discipline, productivity, or leveling up because you want inspirational or even instructional ways to improve your life. I'm the same way, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem starts, however, when you open up Instagram or YouTube and you start to compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 10. So you see her new apartment, her business, her engagement, her lifestyle, and you start questioning your own pace. And now your focus is split between your work and her progress. I've made a video on this. I'll link it at the top of this video here so that you can check it out if you haven't seen it already. That video provides more detail on what you can do to stop comparing yourself to other women. But for the sake of this video, for the next 7 days, I want you to mute anyone who triggers the need to compare and just really pay attention to what changes. So I'm not saying that you need to unfollow anyone. If you decide to do that, that is on you. But I just want you to remove the daily exposure so that you can get back focused on you and your goals. Then I want you to sit with yourself to document it and to measure what and how your attention has shifted. So beyond the jealousy and beyond the envy and the comparison and everything else that comes with it, I just want to focus on me and what I'm creating. And so throughout the years, I've learned to just mute people, unfollow them, or better yet, never follow them in the first place so that I can really protect my attention and vision of what I'm building. So yeah, watch my last video and then challenge yourself to really mute anyone throughout this week. But just give yourself 7 days or as much time as you need. What I want you to do is really pay attention to how your mind is not scanning everyone else's progress and how it finally has space to focus on your own. Now, this next one is really interesting to me, I guess because over the last couple of years, I have become more aware of the things that I do to seek validation or approval from people outside of myself. And I know, at least for me, you don't really pick up on the fact that you're aiming to be validated by someone else in a certain moment. You might literally just be sharing a small detail about something that you're proud of, something that you've been working on, something that you showed up for, and you've achieved some kind of result. In my situation, it took doing all of these things and still being rejected for me to really understand that the only reason I cared to show that person this information was to be accepted, was to be chosen, was to feel a sense of belonging. And without them telling me, I felt like I had to prove my worth to them. And we all do this. It just looks different for each of us. So I'm going to use social media as an example here because we're ambitious women. We're building our personal brands. And that is the number one place where we go to share our milestones or our highlights. So let's look at it from two different lenses. But first, if you have ever posted anything and then immediately went to check to see who viewed it, give this video a thumbs up real quick and be honest. It's okay. We've all done it, but we're going to get to the bottom of what this really means. So the first lens that we're going to look at is from a major milestone. So something like graduating from college. When we accomplish something big that required a long journey, there's some kind of transformation at the end. There's some kind of growth. There's an outcome that marks a true highlight in our lives. In those moments, we naturally want to share it. We put together photos, maybe a photo dump or a reel to document and celebrate the experience. experience. And yes, we know it's gonna get likes, but we're not really fixated on the number. Our focus is on sharing something that we genuinely went through and something that changed or impacted our lives. Now, from the other lens, let's say that you get your hair done and you're just feeling yourself in that moment. On the way home, you take a selfie, you love the photo, you love your hair, and you decide to post it. It's not tied to a major transformation or anything impactful. You're sharing it because it feels good to you, but the intention is slightly different. From either lens, it really can be less about documenting growth and more about just capturing the moment. And sometimes, if we're honest, it can be directly connected to wanting that external affirmation because it feels good to be noticed. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is the shift that happens when your mood depends on those responses. So if you get a bunch of responses, they feel warm, you feel relaxed, you feel accomplished. But if you get any reactions that just feel neutral, now you're questioning yourself. Now your confidence is tied to how other people react. So for the women who are on their journey of becoming the woman that they desire to be and creating the brands that they desire to have, and you're putting yourself out there to share your grand ideas and really build a reality around who it is that you're becoming in this season, I just want you to be mindful and aware of this need to be validated through the journey. When you are becoming, your focus should be so internal that you're not focused on who likes it, who shares it, who supports you. You are focused on the process. When you focus too much on what other people do, what they think about what you're working on, you can get discouraged. And that discouragement will cause you to just stop way too soon in your journey. And I think the more mindful you become in the early phase of your journey, the better you are at not seeking validation from others as you reach certain points in your journey. And this ties back to my example of how sometimes we share things without even realizing that we're sharing this information to prove ourselves, to prove our work. When you're able to be mindful and aware of whatever triggers you to want validation early on, as you continue to journey, as you continue to grow, as you reach certain milestones, you are less driven by that need. So this week, what I want you to do is just make a move, whatever it is. Make the move and keep it to yourself. And during that time, I want you to focus on tracking your mood about doing that thing without announcing it, without sharing it. I talk a lot about the importance of moving in silence here on this channel. I'll link my most recent video here if you haven't seen it yet. Definitely go check it out. But I want to be very clear when it comes to moving in silence, it's not about playing small. When you remove the instant feedback loop, you really can start evaluating how you feel about the things that you're working on in your own life and not so attached to the reactions or the attention that you are receiving from others. So I truly believe that perfectionism is probably the number one thing that is holding a lot of us back. So we have brilliant ideas. We're super creative. We know exactly what it is that we want to do, but we focus so much on making everything perfect that it sometimes stops us from doing the thing. If you don't know, I have a background in marketing. My career title was content project manager. So I've worked with a lot of different individuals to complete a lot of different projects. And one thing that I like to remind whoever's on my team is that we are going to focus on getting it done first. We can focus on making it pretty and making it perfect later. And this isn't about cutting back on the quality of what it is that you're working on, whatever you're producing. It's about being intentional and allowing yourself to move an idea from beginning to the end for the sake of completing it. Project management is probably one of the most valuable skills I think anyone can learn because it's a skill that teaches you that everything really does have a cycle. So sometimes something goes through a cycle multiple times until it's done right. In addition to that, everyone has a deadline. Otherwise, nothing gets done. So this mindset, this lens that I've developed from my career, I apply it to my everyday life, especially as a YouTuber and as someone who is passionate about creating content. So all in all, I do not allow imperfections to stop me from executing. And because of this mindset, I notice how it has trickled into many different areas of my life. So something that I've realized about aiming for perfection is that it's often rooted in fear. So the fear of being judged or criticized for something not being perfect. And naturally, we want things to perform well. And to piggyback off of our last point, we want people to like what we're putting out there. But when you allow imperfections to slow down your process of creating and executing ideas, you end up in a place where nothing is happening at all. simply because you don't know if something will be accepted, approved, or liked. And it's all driven by the fear of being rejected or denied. The best way that you can get over perfectionism is just to do the thing. So the homework that I have for you is to pick a project that you're working on, something that's already in progress, and decide that the 80% of it is enough. And after this video, I want you to open up that project, however it is. Do not make any extra tweaks to it and just post it. The more you get into the mindset that everything is not going to be perfect, the more you allow yourself to just move things forward. Which brings us to perfectionism's first cousin, procrastination. I'm not gonna go too hard on y'all because I do procrastinate as well. I do. And something that me and my best friend, basically my sister, we were talking about how different it feels when someone else puts a deadline in place for you, something that you're working on. So like when you are in school, you know that you have until 11:59 to submit a project. If you didn't work on it over time and you wait until the last minute, you know that feeling like you have to give it your all because you are working against this deadline. And in that last hour, you give it everything you got just to get it done. Now, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I will speak for me. I've identified that sometimes I procrastinate as well because it feels safer to do more research than to just move my big ideas forward. If you didn't know, I am an MBA student. So on top of learning skills to advance my career, I set aside hours to study YouTube, to study my industry, to study my goals, things that I want to accomplish, personal branding being one of that, everything that really inspires me. And it always feels like I'm just gathering information. And if you can relate to that, this is what it really looks like. So we're buying the ebooks, the courses, we're saving the posts, we're taking screenshots. We gather all this information and all of it ends up just taking space up in our phones. So we tell ourselves we'll start the project when we have more time, more money, when our hair is done, when our body is perfect. And then before you know it, days, weeks, months, years pass and we still haven't started the thing. And the thing about all of this is like, while gathering all of this information, it feels like planning and planning feels like progress. This is the area where we keep planning, but we never execute. The only answer here is to stop waiting for the perfect time to do the things that we want to do. In any journey that you go through in life, there's always a learning curve. I just want to encourage you to embrace learning things as you go. The longer that you wait, the heavier that idea feels, the more that fear starts to really build up around it. And at some point, you have to decide that progress matters more than potential. Now, to hold you accountable, this is what we're going to do. If you have a piece of content sitting in your drafts somewhere on Instagram, on TikTok, on any platform that you use, I want you to pause this video, come back to it, but pause it. I want you to go post that video and then come back to this video and make a promise in the comments that you are not going to procrastinate in 2026. If you don't have a draft sitting around somewhere, but you know that you still procrastinate in different ways, I want you to comment down below, what are you going to stop procrastinating on this year? At the end of the day, there's never going to be a right time to create the life that you want. So a great way to overcome procrastination, again, is to just do the thing. Work on things little by little over time. Similar to school, when you're given a deadline, or at work, we're always given very tight deadlines. Make it a habit to give yourself deadlines. Yes, give yourself grace, but don't cheat yourself out of meeting your own deadlines. Deadlines create structure, and structure creates consistency. Without it, ideas and execution becomes inconsistent. So when you don't honor your own deadlines, you weaken self-trust. And weak self-trust is what keeps you identifying with the old versions of yourself. Let's move into the next point. The only way that you're going to release these old or negative labels is actually a very boring and practical process. I'm not gonna lie, but it requires you to consistently show up to improve. So you have to let go of the idea that you are one way when you are aiming to become something different. And again, this can be a very boring process. It can feel very practical, very repetitive, but this is what's going to help you detach from those old labels and step into this new version of yourself that you're becoming. So let's go back to procrastination for a second. If you admit that you are a procrastinator, one thing that you can do is start creating time blocks throughout your day. One thing that you can do for the next 30 days is to create time blocks to work on one thing. So pay attention to what happens when it's time for you to show up for yourself, when it's time for you to work on that one thing within that time frame. What excuses do you make? What boundaries do you lack? So So for example, let's say every Tuesday at 2 p.m., you decide that you're going to work on your pitch deck. But then someone invites you out to lunch at 1:30. They want to go to your favorite sushi place, and you know that you need to lock in and focus. If you choose to go on lunch instead of doing the thing in that time frame, then you have to recognize that you don't have any real boundaries in place. Again, when it comes to improving procrastination, it will require you to lock in differently. The better that you become at setting parameters around things like time block, the easier it is for you to stay focused, to block out distractions, and to say no to others and to yourself. One of the labels that I recently had to let go of was that I'm not good with public speaking. So public speaking is such an important skill. I don't think we really talk about enough. If you want to improve your public speaking skills or get better with speaking on camera, then you just simply have to start picking up the camera and start practicing speaking, right? So again, back to our example of gathering a lot of information. I watch a lot of videos on how I can speak better, especially with being a YouTuber. But the only way that you're going to improve, the only way that you're going to grow is if you apply what you learn. So over the last couple of years, I have been working on improving my public speaking skills by just speaking up more in group settings, especially in work environments. And making YouTube videos have really helped a lot because I'm learning how to communicate ideas more efficiently and more effectively, and to do it in a way that really exudes confidence. So all in all, letting go of these old labels that we've put on ourselves, it really does allow you to live in a way that reflects who you are right now and not who you used to be. It reminds you that your habits are choices that you can always adjust, and it really does help you reduce the need to cling to what feels familiar when you are in a season of growth. When it comes to releasing the past, a big part of it is just allowing yourself to catch up to who you are today. So I have made many mistakes. I've done a lot of things that I'm ashamed of, and there are literally moments where I will be sitting somewhere minding my business, and then a random memory will pop up in my head, like a conversation, a decision, and it's like the same guilt or embarrassment would hit me all over again, like it just happened. So something that I've learned that really helps is that releasing the past starts with accepting that it happened and that you are not that same person that you were in that moment. For me, as I continue to move forward with YouTube, I sometimes think about like the people who knew the older versions of me, what they would think or say if they ever came across my channel. And so if they did ever come across this channel, and if they did ever feel like, oh, she acting brand new, I remember she used to do this, it doesn't matter. That's an old narrative. That's an old story. Sometimes we hold on to those old stories because it comes from our own fear. So not from what other people are actually thinking about us, but the fear that we think they're thinking about us. So if something from your past still bothers you, write it down. Allow yourself to feel it fully instead of pretending that it doesn't matter. I don't care for journaling. It's not my favorite exercise to do. But when I notice that something is really sitting with me for an extended period of time, I will allow myself to write it out. I'll cry about it, and then I'll tear the paper up and throw it away. In the past, I've even burned letters. I know it sounds dramatic, but I don't know. It's just something about physically discarding something that really allows like your body to register that we're letting it go, we're moving on from it. And you can also talk yourself through it like a therapist, like that was me then and this is me now, and like really unravel what that means. When letting go of the past, whatever that means to you, it is really important to remember that the past is just an old reference point. If you have gone through something and identified that it made you feel a certain way, you are responsible for processing that feeling. You're responsible for releasing it, and you are responsible for using that information to grow and to become better. Where I am in my life, especially as someone who focuses on personal growth and personal development, I recognize that if I've failed a life lesson before, I am not going to make that same mistake again. So never let your past mistakes or regrets stop you from showing up for the things that you want today. Doing so really does strengthen your self-trust, and it helps you face the fear of stepping outside of your comfort zone. Now, this next and last point, I have talked about this on this channel before. So as ambitious women, we set pretty big goals for ourselves. We're always moving the target for what it is that we want to achieve or accomplish. The fear of failure has become something very interesting to me over the last couple of years because it ties back to everything we've talked about in this video in different ways. Fear is really the root problem for everything. We fear not showing up as perfect. We fear not knowing how to do every little thing and being exposed as as an imposter. We fear old narratives creeping back into our lives and meeting us where we are today. So in combination, that looks like the fear of failure. Even while I was working on this video, I asked myself, like, what can you really do to let go of the fear of failure? And honestly, I think it comes down to accepting that failure is never an option. I think of everything like a journey. If you and I sat down to plan a road trip from Georgia to California, that's a journey. So we would map out where we're going to stop for gas, where we're going to stop to take photos and to sightsee. Now, on the way to California, if we decide to redirect and go to Vegas instead, or if we get to Texas and we realize, you know what, we've enjoyed our time, we're ready to pack everything up and go back home to Georgia, we pivot. That doesn't take away from the experience of traveling from either Georgia to Vegas or Georgia to Texas. Along the way, we stopped at different places, we saw different things. Maybe we caught a flat tire on the side of the road and we learned how to properly pull over to change the tire. Whatever changes we decide to make along the way, we experienced the journey, even if it didn't look exactly how we planned it. Doing the things that requires you to show up for your dreams, to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and do what feels either hard or awkward never ends in failure. There are so many business owners who have failed in their first business. Most of them pivot. They learn, they take what they gained, and they apply it to their next idea. My best friend / sister reminded me that sometimes we plan for success to look one way, and then God has a different vision for us. So you might want 100,000 views on your next YouTube video. You might want that job at Google. You might want to achieve X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever it is. You may not get exactly what you want, but you will always get what you need. So maybe it's not 100,000 views, but maybe a brand or an organization reaches out with an aligned opportunity for you. That is not failure. You wanted the job at Google. You did everything that everyone says you need to do to get a job at Google. You interviewed, you went through multiple rounds, you didn't get picked. It hurts, but it's not failure. You take what you learned about the process for Google and you apply it somewhere else, and maybe that experience helps you land a job with similar benefits, remote work, higher pay. That is not failure. I say all that to say that the idea of failure, rejection, or being denied, it definitely hurts. But as a woman who's focused on growth and becoming who you desire to be, always ask yourself, what am I gaining from this experience and how do I apply it in the next phase? So thank you so much for sticking around and chatting with me. This video was a little lighter than usual. I really value being able to come on here and just talk through the things that I'm actively learning and applying in my own journey. So none of this is just theory for me. I'm really building, stretching, adjusting, and trying to figure it all out like you are. If you're serious about becoming the woman that you desire to be and building a personal brand that reflects who you're becoming, make sure you check out the Become the Brand guide. It will be listed down below. I truly put my all into creating this guide to really help you get clear on what it is that you stand for, to shape your message without overly performing, and to just be confident showing up in a way that actually matches your values and long-term vision. So thank you again for watching, and I will catch you in my next upload.